Hello and welcome to In the Art Scene podcast, a place where creatives share their stories. My name is Galina Marquez, and I have another cool story prepared for you today, so let's get to it. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of In the Art Scene podcast, and this is the conversation I personally am very excited about because we're talking today with Mark O'Donnell, an owner of local San Diego fine art print company, who I have been lucky and privileged to work for since December 2020. Is that correct? I think it is.
It is, yeah. And that's. I mean, I'm taken aback here. That's quite an introduction. Thank you, and it's a pleasure to see you and work with you and your art.
Well, likewise, because I have learned in this a year and a little bit, I have learned so much about fine art printing that I could not even expect to learn anywhere from the internet. And that's thanks to you, because you have been in the business for 20 years.
Yep.
Or
so actually this is our 20th year, and actually the last 2 years have been our biggest years ever. I know we've had COVID, we've kind of dealt with it. We'll talk a little bit about how we've done it. But we're very happy to be in this position right now. And what we really want to do is educate the artist. The client comes in, the artist comes in, and that's what we're all about. So I hope we get to talk a little bit about that, because I think that sets us apart a little bit from our so-called competitors.
And that's the whole purpose of today's conversation, actually. Yeah. So let's start with a little bit of a history. How did you get here? How did you start a printing company that serves specifically art scene in San Diego and Southern California?
Well, thanks for asking. So long time ago, I graduated from the University of Maine. I grew up in Maine, so I'm an East Coaster, now here in San Diego. And I got an art degree at the University of Maine at Orono, Maine. It was with painting and sculpture. And like a lot of artists in college at the time, you don't know what you're going to do with it. You don't know where you're going to go. And this is before the digital age. So it was real traditional. And I finished my degree, got my 4-year degree. And like everybody else from Maine, first thing I did was drive down to Florida. I moved to Florida to get out of the cold, and didn't like Florida. There was no art there. So I was really thinking, what am I going to do? I went to upstate New York, where my sister and my brother-in-law are, and I was just being the nanny for a little while. They just had kids, so Uncle Mark is here, and what's he going to do with his life? Well, he's going to take care of the kid for a little while. And we got talking, and my brother-in-law told me that in Chicago he had 2 brother-in-laws. One was an illustrator, and the other one owned an advertising company in Chicago. So he basically got my foot in the door. So as an artist, I was like, excited. And I've never been to Chicago. So I drove out to Chicago, met the 2 gentlemen, stayed a week in both places, got to learn a little bit about illustration. And the other place was a digital advertising firm. And I was interviewing in different museums and really not knowing where to go. And lo and behold, after the second week with the second brother-in-law who owned the advertising company in Chicago, he offered me a job to come in. And I said, all right, let's do it. And I started in very, very, very green, not knowing what's going on. And with the art background, they were doing some silk screening with the art industry. So I learned how to silk screen. And they also had the first fine art printer.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the first one in Chicago, they had the first 2. So I was privileged to just walk in the door in my 20s and learn with a mentor how to use these fine art printers back in 1988, 89. So the whole industry was just starting. And I was there. It was a great time. And I had a lot of energy, and I was a lot younger. And I got to learn a lot. So with that, they opened up another office in LA. So I came out to LA. With that background, we had that same Iris fine art printer, which we can go into in detail in another podcast. It's a long story, but it was the first printer that produced fine art, and I was just at the right place at the right time. So when I came out to LA, I worked for that same company doing a lot of movies, movie posters, advertising, and after about 10 years out here, one of the guys that worked for me, because I was the production manager, had a little restaurant, and he had famous artists coming from Argentina. And one of them said, "Hey, Patrick," my partner at the time, "if you open up a company, then you can have all my work." And this is a very big artist, and we can get into that another cast too. But so he came to me and said, "Mark, quit work. You've been there for 20 years or 15 years. Let's start this company. We've got the number one painter right now, and let's do some fine art printing for him. And I'm moving to San Diego because my wife has a job there. So come on down." So I quit my work, just jumped out of the plane, barely a parachute, and we opened up 20 years ago. Since then, the partner's gone and things have evolved, and the one client left us, but I have continued with the company for 20 years. And that's where I'm at right now. I still like to paint. I'm still an artist, but I think the biggest thing that I can contribute to is the fact that I know how to take the color digitally and talk to artists like yourself and say, okay, we can make this color look like this color from digital to real life palette. So that's where I'm at right now. Among a few things, that was the quick version, but that's basically how I got here.
Well, it's actually very nice to. I'm very glad that I got you on the podcast, because I think I've heard this story even in the shorter version before. So now I'm getting a little bit more details. It's it's a great story, and it's amazing how things are kind of unwrapped for you, and you just jumped into the opportunities, and it seems like you were in a place where you're supposed to be, because you are doing a great job for
well, thank you. I firmly believe that, and I think you've seen me at my shop here, that I'm probably, I'm so happy at what I do that I'm literally dancing around here. And if people have a camera or get access to my camera, they'd probably laugh. But I'm very happy with what I do, and I know I've made the right choice. There's been a lot of sacrifices, so we can also talk about, if you want to get into printing, what you're going to expect. I think the biggest thing is you have to evolve. You have to evolve quickly. Life is changing quickly for all of us technically. And if you don't keep up, you can be left behind quickly. So that's one thing that I've really had to struggle with, I would say. But other than that, I'm in a very good place right now. So I'm glad we're having this conversation too.
Awesome. So let's approach it from the standpoint of an artist who has never done printing before from their work, and let's say I don't know anything about it, and I walk in your door or call on the phone, and I literally don't even know how to ask any questions, because this is where I have been before I have met you. And I have had another interaction with another company that I will not name here that left me a little bit disappointed, diplomatically speaking.
Yeah, no, so, I get it.
Yeah. Let's kind of lay it down, and then I think we can drill down into some specific processes that artists might benefit from knowing from you.
Well, the first thing is, for me, this has been my life. So this is all I know. And I'm typecasted in this role right now, and I'm happy to be there. But it just surprises me every day we get new clients, every day, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, which is wonderful. I'm taken aback because they don't understand printing, and I've been dealing with it forever, and I just assume everyone else knows about it. So, yes. So I think the valuable thing that I can share with you is that I take you through the process, step by step by step. We we know that you're kind of, you're a little scared. You don't know what to expect. And if you've been shopping online, you don't get to talk to a lot of people. You're just going through, algorithms and things. When you call or email us, we're going to talk to you, and we're going to say, come on in. Come on in tomorrow. We've got a little shop in the front here. Let's show you. I can talk all day about the process, about printing on metal, canvas, paper, all this stuff. But until I show you, that's the biggest thing. I need to have you here and show you. But to start with, I would say we start with, give me your file. Do you have a file? If you don't have a file, okay, well, let's go this other route. We can scan everything. We have different technologies for scanning. We have two different, we have a flatbed scanner and we have a better light camera system. So if you don't have a file, let's talk about bringing in your original. Let's get it scanned properly. And at no charge, we'll print a little tiny proof on whatever substrate you want to see. So it's going to be metal or canvas or watercolor paper. So first thing is we got to get your file. We need a digital file. Do we scan it? Okay, that's one way. And I think that's a $70 cost if we do that. If you have your own file, we don't know how that was scanned. So we don't know how it's going to go when we go to print. So at no charge, once again, we're going to print your file and show you what it looks like now. Because I can look at it on screen with you, but until we actually have a physical proof, it's really hard to tell what's going to happen. So if you have a digital file, send it to us through the website. We're going to print it on the substrate at size, whatever you're going to be printing at, whether it's 60 inches or 48 inches. So you can see not only the color, but the clarity, the resolution when it goes to that size, because no one likes to be surprised. If you come to us and we do a little 8x10 print and you want to do a 48x60 canvas, well, you might be surprised with the result with your file when we go that big. So we want to get that out of the way. We want to say, this is how it looks now. This is how it's going to look when it goes big. If you're up for it, let's go for it.
Well, this is actually one of the things that I admire so much about Pixel 2 Edition, that all the proofs and all the tests and like color proofing and stuff, like especially for someone who's doing it for the first time, you are doing it free of charge, just for the person to actually see and be able to like touch the substrate. And I know that printing on different materials, like printing on watercolor paper, will look a little bit different from printing on canvas. And and if you have a digital file and if you have no reference to the original, you gotta see what the final result you are getting before you paid your money.
Yeah, right? And the thing is too, I'm all about take the proof home. Go home with it, because wherever you look at that little proof or bigger proof under whatever lights, it's going to be different. So we don't want to have someone get in their car and say, oh, geez, I just paid for this thing and then I got home and it doesn't look good under my lights, and call me up. Hey, Mark, why doesn't this look good here? It looked great at your place. I say, you know what? Just take a step back. Let's communicate. Let's know that your image with your file is going to look good under your lights, our lights, and then we're going to go for it. And yes, it's we do eat that cost a little bit, but I think that's part of the education, because again, we're walking through people that have never done this, and why if you go to another print place, let's say Walmart, Costco, whatever, they're not going to give you that. They're going to say, okay, here's the file, boom, print, boom, there you go. Oh, we cropped it, by the way, because it wasn't to your specs, and the color was red, and that's what your file is. I think the difference is with us, as you know, we're going to call you up and say, wait a minute, your file's low res. Wait a minute, it's a little too red. Let's talk about what we can do different. Let's make it right, because no one likes to get a bad surprise like that.
Mm-hmm. And it is very frustrating, and I can attest to it. It is very frustrating when you're first time trying, like you cannot figure out in your head everything you want to do, what size of the prints you want, what kind of quality you're going to get. Are you going to like offer them on canvas or on paper? Are they going to be matted, or are they going to be stretched, framed, whatever? So
There's so many when people, and sorry to interrupt, but I have a new client that's coming by Monday that called up today, and she wanted to do a small, let's say it's a, like a 7.5 by 11 metal. She heard metal and she's like, oh, metal, let's do metal, Mark. And I said, well, have you ever seen a metal? Do you know that there's 5 different types of metals? There's a clear gloss, there's a white gloss, there's a matte, and I said, wait a minute, are you local? Oh yeah, I am. Well, come by Monday. I'm going to, actually, the free proofs that I'm going to do for her on 3 different metals to show it, and it's for her nephew who flies airplanes. So they want to have a metallic look. I said, you know what? Come by, and I've already printed them out. We're going to have them all ready for her on Monday, but she's going to see proofs that are technically, with no charge, bigger than her final print. You know what I mean? So and I said, I don't have any problem with that, because once you see this, then then you can tell your friends, and then when you reorder that you're going to be able to get this look. Now, if she was not here locally, I would offer to ship at no charge a little test, because again, education's a very, very bigger part than I ever thought with this industry. It's very important.
yeah, I agree with you. We have many clients, and I say we because we still work together. But
Sure.
and it is my true pleasure. I can tell everyone like aloud, and you can take me up on my word. It has been the best job I have ever had.
Well, I think I'm going to ask you, because I've never asked you this before, but I'm assuming when you started out and you went to another company, you went there, you got some work done. When you came here, and when you come in here, do you see and feel that energy of the dedication and, the love for the art that we have here? Because I think that's a very big part of our operation here also.
I do, and that's actually what I was going to say, that it does feel like you truly care about the outcome for the artist. It's not like you just care about getting business, printing, making it. I don't know. For some artists, it is important to make it as cheap as possible so they can put a little bit of more margin onto their work. But what you do, and what it did feel like to me from the very beginning when I walked in the door, is that we're going to do right by you, because you're an artist and you're ultimately decide what you want to do with your work. Because even if it's a Giclee print, it's not original, you still have an authority to decide how your audience is going to perceive it and what kind of effect you're going to get out of it. And we have had many people who had some creative ideas and some unexpected solutions. And we're asking you about, can you do that? Or can you do that? Can we experiment? And you're always open to it, because to me, it feels like this is the ultimate purpose of Pixel 2 Edition's existence, not only to educate, but also work with, because this is the art in itself. You're going to be, as an artist, you have to be happy with the product you're receiving and offering to your customers.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I would say that you heard quickly my brief background. If I went to business school, I wouldn't have a fine art printing company. I'm telling you right now, because you have to have an incredible passion for what you do in this industry. If you don't, and you do it for the almighty dollar, forget about it. Because this is not. I'm glad I'm not a business person, because I'm actually succeeding because of that, by dealing with the artist and being an artist. I think, my CPA might disagree, but we love what we do. It shows. I'm completely passionate about it. And the thing is, we run a very lean market here, so we don't have any debt. If something comes out here and we're ready to buy it and jump on it, then we will. I would say right now, we're kind of with the standstill of all the pandemic and everything. We haven't been able to go to shows and see the latest equipment. But what we've done is take our equipment, whether it's 1 year old or 5 years old, and just change it up a little bit. Maybe put a different substrate on there, or add a different ink, or try something else. So we're all about experimenting. And when I started with the advertising company in Chicago, I said that we started with silk screening. Well, we moved into the digital age, but we took that silk screening technique, me and my mentor, and we actually developed some coatings that we could print on anything on that printer because we were experimenting. So 20 years ago, I'm still doing the same kind of thing. We're taking a technology and just trying to tweak it a little bit and make it a little bit better in some ways. But we're always keeping our eyes open for the newest things.
Yeah, I just had an interview with another artist who's going to be in the previous episode. And she said an interesting thing as well about being a businessman versus being an artist. If you were in this business for money, if you want to be an artist, you have to be passionate about that. And if your goal is to make money, there are much more easier ways to do that and faster.
If I were to do it again, in another life, I would say if I want to make money, I'd probably be an accountant, because you don't have the overhead, you don't have ink and paper, and you can bill per hour and all that stuff. But I would say we don't strive to be artists. I think you're born with it. You're an artist, and we're just helping to kind of let that out. And I think with what we do here for Giclee, it's tough when somebody comes in, you spend time and you do one print instead of 50 or 100, but you're getting that art out to other people, and you're helping that person really reach the masses if they can. So I've got no regrets about what we're doing and where we're going. And am I getting into 3D or anything? No, probably not. But we're going to continue to provide the best service that we can with the highest quality product.
And that was my next question also, when you were talking about equipment and tweaking things. So I think this is a good segue to actually list the number of services that Pixel 2 Edition offers. Mm-hmm. So different types of prints, different types of substrates. So if someone calls and says, I want to do prints, but I have no idea what kind of prints, what do you guys can do for me?
Sure. So the first question that I have for that person is, what's your end result? What do you want to do? Okay, you maybe have a digital image, maybe you want us to make it, but what do you want to do with that? Is it going to go to a certain place? Is it going, how do you want to present it? Is it going to be framed? Is it going to be matted? Those are the questions. We start backwards. We basically want to know, okay, because everything else is easy for us. So we want to know, is this going to be outdoors? Is this going to be an addition? So when we hear all those answers to those questions, then we can kind of narrow things in. So what we have here at our shop is we don't do high volume. We do high quality, low volume, but we offer different types of printing. We have solvent printing, which is outdoor canvas printing. We have dye sublimation printing, which is for the metals. It's the same process you would have for coffee mugs and T-shirts. We have our Better Light camera system, which we digitize anything. We've done 10 by 16 foot canvas scans, so that there's no limitation there. And we have polarizers, so we can do metallics and we can capture texture too. We also have a couple of printers that are what's called aqueous, which are pigmented. Oh, and by the way, everything we do here is considered Giclee or archival.
Except for metal.
Yes and no. We'll get to that term in a minute.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, but the aqueous printing and everything is Epson based or Canon based. For the aqueous, that's a high resolution. It's 64-inch wide, so we can do watercolor prints, photographic prints on those machines that are anywhere from 5 to 20 feet long, because everything's in a roll. For the dye sublimation, the metals, right now we're limited to our heat press. Our heat press system is 30 by 40 inches. Even though we can print bigger, we're limited to imaging 30 by 40 for metals. The other printer that we have is a flatbed printer. It's UV. That is the longest lasting inks. It's a 4-color printer with white ink. So you're really not limited to size. You've got 4 by 8 feet, and we can print on anything that's under 2 inches thick. So we just did a big outdoor sign for in the desert. So it's going to get a lot of sun and a lot of heat, but we printed directly to a metal on that machine. So I would say we're not limited for size. I think, when people say, how big can you go? I usually say, well, how big is your vehicle? Because it's going to be bigger than that, and it's going to cost a lot of money to ship. Speaking of shipping, we also do crates. So we ship worldwide every day. We have FedEx pickup here. So we can offer drop shipping. And for a lot of people that want to order online and send us an email and say, hey, Mark, we just sold this. Can you print this, ship this? We can do that. And if they want to come in and sign it, or they want us to send it to them, we have a big client in Hawaii that sometimes they require signatures. So we'll print a canvas, we'll put it in a tube, and we'll ship it to Hawaii. They'll sign it, ship it back. We'll stretch it and ship it wherever it goes, whether it's Germany or Kentucky or anywhere else. So
you're saying is that you're printing, artist is ordering the print, and you can ship it directly to artists back if that's what they want, or you can ship it directly to their customer.
Correct.
Okay.
And and we don't obviously put an invoice into their clients, so we respect their privacy. And we're not limited with any shipping sizes with that either. I gave you a little bit of an overview of what we do here for the machinery. Physically, we do cut and chop and join our own stretcher bars. So any canvas that you want to have stretched, whether it's, again, like a 10 by 20 foot canvas, we can build that here and stretch on that. And we do everything by hand. We don't do machines with that, because we feel that with canvas, there's a lot depending on climate and the type of canvas that we're stretching. So we don't want, if you have a machine, it doesn't really recognize that, oh, it's very humid out here today. So, there's nuances, and it's an art in itself to stretch canvas. And I can show you my hands, but they're pretty calloused. I've been doing many stretches for years.
Yeah, that's something that I still have to learn how to do.
I don't know if you want it.
That's one thing that I did not pick up at the shop yet.
It's actually very rewarding to stretch canvas, and then, I got my little ritual where I stretch the canvas, and maybe we can show that sometime, where you thump on it, it's like a drum. But I will say that humidity plays a big role. You have to stretch when it's very humid. So we actually have our stretcher comes in from Mexico every night from midnight to 8 a.m. And that's when the humidity is very high. And that's when he does all the stretches, because that's when you want to have the stretches done, when you can really pull the canvas. And the canvas that we print on stretches more one direction than the other. So, again, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I've actually seen a lot, and I've experimented with a lot. So I kind of know what canvases are going to do and how they're going to stretch.
Yeah, it takes a lot of, I guess, like tactile practice and tactile memory to get that right. Let's take a short coffee break. Producing this podcast sure takes a lot of energy. Would you buy me a coffee so I can continue doing it? I would really appreciate it. The link is in the show notes and on our website, intheartscene.com. Thanks for supporting our show. You mentioned that everything you do is considered archival. It's Giclee print.
Yes.
So the substrates that you have at the shop, all the papers and all the canvases are
Yes.
archival, and the inks that you're using are archival.
Yes.
So my question was about the metal, because I know that
Sure.
metals eventually, like after maybe a couple of decades, they will fade.
Right.
So
well, yeah, for me, I've done my share of trade shows. So I've talked to all these people and the salespeople that, and I've asked them, and I've actually kind of, hid my badge and been like, oh, hey, what about this? And to try to get a little bit of understanding of what they're trying to sell. And I know that coming from the first fine art printer, which was the Iris printer, it was all dye inks, and dye inks are great. So if you have inks that are dye, they're very pure and they're not contaminated, and you get a really high color gamut. Okay, that's the beauty of it. You can hit any color with dye inks. Now, whenever you say dye, you can't say archival in the same sentence because it's a dye and it's going to fade really quick. Archival, pigment, and solvent and UV all go together. They are completely archival. So when I say, about the metal, when people ask, Chromolux is the actual product that we image to for metal, and they say that it's archival within these specs, and then they go on to say with X amount of sunshine, and so it's like, okay, well, that doesn't sound archival, because some of the solvent printers and the UV that we use, we print banners that are sitting outside at Del Mar still, with the horse races. So those are archival. So I would say that it's archival. It'll last generations. What I want to put, because I'm very transparent, too transparent, I will always give the archival, but whereas some of the other salespeople or competitors will say, metal, that's our archival. I think UV metal's archival. I think dye sublimation metal is questionable.
Okay.
With direct sunlight.
Okay. Well, if we're talking about classic Giclee, which is prints on paper and prints on the canvas that we do, how long on average would you say it's going to last? Consider that the product is archival; it's guaranteed by the producer of the substrate and the inks. Yeah.
So this is an area I actually can get it, because I was probably 20, 35 years ago, to date myself. I was one of 50 people around the world to be invited to a Vegas conference to come up with all these different terms about Giclee and archival and all that. And there was so much bureaucratic stuff. It's like, I'm ready to go to the tables. But at any rate, we all tried to come up with, what is a Giclee? How do we do this? Because let's just talk about the term real quick. So the term Giclee came about in the 1980s when inkjet printing is what we were doing with dye inks, with the Iris. That was considered fine art. But then people were like, well, this is fading in like 2 months. So the term Giclee came about from Nash Editions. Graham Nash had Jack Dugan coined the term. And we actually knew him because in Chicago, when we were working there, we would share secrets with the fine art printing with Nash Editions. So we were really at that very, very forefront, the very beginning. So the whole Giclee now, because things change so quickly in our industry, it simply means you're using the latest equipment with the latest inks and the latest papers, because guess what? There's going to be a new machine tomorrow. There's going to be new papers tomorrow. So everything that we do here, Giclee is not just considered a canvas. It's considered, you're using the best right now. To be real blunt and short about it, you're using the best. So everything we do here is considered Giclee. So to get that term out of the way. So I'm sorry, what you were going on about the I'm sorry, the archival properties. Willem
Yes.
Research is a separate third party company that does all the testing. It's called Blue Wool Testing, and they test the papers and the inks. So if you want to have the best of the best, you want to have what's called, I would say, is the 3M guarantee. You want to have Epson paper, Epson ink, this. Once you start introducing third-party papers, then it's a little questionable about the pure archival qualities that you're using, because you can take the best inks, most archival inks right now, and I could put a piece of copy paper in from Kinko's, right, and print on that with archival ink. Guess what? It's going to fall apart in a month. So you have to have the package, and that's what we provide. We do have that. We have the latest printers, Epson inks. There's no, they're all OEM, so there's no third party, and the papers are that also. So yeah, we have the package deal with that.
So how
yeah,
long?
There's a long, boring answer to everything you're saying.
Yeah, I still need my answer though.
I'm
How
just
long?
trying. Yeah,
How
I'm
many
just trying
years?
to
How many years my print is gonna last? If
your
let's
print
say
is gonna, your print is going to last. It's going to outlast you and another generation or two or three. It's going to be, they say, about 100 years or so.
about 100 years.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the short answer. Because I can go
Thank you.
I go off on tangents. So.
Okay, I have another question about the UV flatbed. You mentioned, well, this is a fantastic, it's a monster. This machine is actually a monster. And I know how much time you spend on it, cleaning it and making sure that it behaves the way you want it to behave, because it does provide a really like cool effects and a good quality print. And normally, like, let's say industry standard, it is being used for printing on plexiglass, on sometimes on metal, sometimes on wood. This is what Pixel 2 Edition offers. But once in a while, I know that you have weird requests for this machine. So what was the craziest substrate that you used on the flatbed?
A rusted tin roof. And the tin roof was like rippled like this. I mean, the gaps. So the beauty of this, there's again, when you come to us and we're teaching you, I'm going to give you pros and cons of every station. Okay, here's the pros. You want to do this? Okay, this is what, and because I'm a terrible salesman, I'm going to tell you the truth. That's why I'm terrible. So a rusted tin roof was one of the weirdest things. We print on bark. So with this UV technology, so this has been around for a while, and it's getting better, and it's actually only going to get bigger. It's going to take the place eventually. I was a little early thinking about when I bought this machine. There's a process called face mounting where you print on photographic paper, and they're beautiful. I mean, you see them all over Hawaii. And I can name tons of galleries, but they're giant. They're beautiful. They're purely photographic, and they're mounted to the back of the plexi or glass. This machine, I believe, is getting very close to taking over that technology. And the beauty of it is, for a business owner, is that you're skipping a step. You no longer have to put that nice adhesive on and worry about that. You just print directly to it. So I bought that with that in mind. I bought my printer 6.5 years ago, and believe me, yesterday they told me that it's a dinosaur. I said, I just paid it off a year ago. So that's how quick technology changes, and that's how quick. And that $100,000 machine is now worth $10,000. By the way, it is fully workable. That's the depreciation. So when you get to that business end and what we do, the depreciation of these machines is, it's you just really, you bang your head. So so the weirdest thing was the rusted tin roof. The big pro about the UV is that it prints on anything. That's because you have UV curing lamps, and you have these inks which are outdoor. You also have a white ink. So when I said I printed on a rusted tin roof, yeah, I printed white first, and then I printed, that's unlike all these other printers that we have, from the dye sublimation to the aqueous to the eco solvent for the Epson. Those are two big pros for that machine. The con, as you mentioned, is that whenever you have white ink, the reason a lot of printers don't have white ink, other than the substrates are white, is that white ink has to be thick. It has to be opaque. So when you're going through a little tiny nozzle and you have thick opaque ink, you're going to get clogging. So that's the biggest part. So I'm usually spending my day, making sure that the white is going through and it's purging, because it's going to clog or there'll be air bubbles. So, but it's a great machine. I worked at a signage company. I told you, from Chicago to LA. I didn't tell you what that company really was, but it was a signage company. So the reason I quit 20 years ago was because I was focusing, some of the artists would come to our signage company, and my boss was like, "Hey, Mark, get that guy out of here. We got Columbia TriStar and we got Paramount Pictures. We don't want to hang out with an artist." And as an artist, it hurt me, and it hurt the fact that I was being the production manager helping out this artist. That's why I left that business to come here. So I think there's a lot of legs left with the UV. I think we're one of the first companies that really embraced it as a fine art possibility. It's still an outdoor signage, lower resolution printer. But what we've done here is we've slowed the machine down. We've got a bigger color gamut because of our color tables. And we're trying to really embrace artists with it, whether it's direct to bamboo. Bamboo and birch are very, very nice, along with the glass or plexiglass that you've mentioned earlier. So I also have people that bring in different papers that normally you wouldn't be able to print on with the aqueous and the eco solvent printers, because those are coated papers for those machines. And if you have an uncoated paper, what do? How do you print on it? Well, the UV printer will print on that. So even though we don't have a lot of machinery, we have a lot of different options for whatever you're looking for.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah. And the reason I asked that question is kind of also to prompt the artist to to be able to just ask questions, because this industry is really not limited by what just listed on the website, because there are ways, and there are people like you who are willing to help around, experiment, and walk you through the process and see if you can get to the point where the artist is happy.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, that, again, from a business standpoint, what I do is not right. It's why a lot of people don't do what I do, because to take time with each artist, like when I left that other company, when they were doing that, they're going for the almighty dollar, and they want to do this. They want the 50,000. I'm talking about a $20 job with a new client that I will actually invest $25 in, just to show them what they're able to get. And if they don't want to, they can walk away. So again, I'm making myself, I'll probably be typecast as the worst businessman ever. But I'm not a good businessman, because I care about these things, but it's coming back where I think I am going to be a good businessman, because it's going to pay off, and it does, and it pays off with people like yourself and other people that, hey, wow, I didn't know that, and they didn't tell me that. I can't tell you how many times I've heard they didn't tell me that. So again, we're very transparent, very honest, too honest, and we'll even critique your art for you.
I probably will never be a good businessman myself, and I actually admire your point of view on that, because, and I guess the art world, the more I communicate with other artists and bring guests on the podcast, I kind of get more and more proof that in the art world, people are more about sharing and helping each other, and not about taking advantage of each other. And that, I think, what you have seen in your 20 years career. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there are bad apples everywhere, of course, but sure, so far so good. And Pixel 2 Edition is successfully growing, which is making me happy too. Well, one thing I wanted to also talk to you a little bit in details is professional digital capture.
Okay.
Because there are some moving parts that a lot of artists don't realize like ahead of time, like bringing something framed behind the glass or putting a heavy varnish. So because they don't know, I mean, flatbed scanner is one thing. It's pretty basic, pretty easy, right?
Yep.
Although that also has its own tricky things, like if there's a heavy varnish, there will be a lot of reflection, especially on the canvas texture.
Yeah, I will tell you before our conversation here, the last 5 hours of the day, I've been going over scans that we've done here, and because we get very busy, and we'll do let's say maybe 20 scans or 20 captures. You cannot automate that process. You need to, and believe me, when I went through it, I'm like, I've got it. I probably have 3 or 4 redos for my camera guy Monday because I don't like them. No, I look at focus, I look at clarity, I look at lighting, and those are all big things whenever you're taking, let's say, a picture on your cell phone or digital camera or a regular camera. There's so many different things. You can't have one size fits all because there's different pigments that you're painting. There's different shines. There's a varnish. There's a texture. So everything has to be catered. So when you come see our shop, you'll see that we actually have lights, 2 different lights, and they're not just set up where you got 45 degrees, because that's what you would think. I mean, and me, I'm not a photographer, and I'm thinking, 45, that's great. No, it's not great, because you need to move the lights around to capture texture. And then you have a polarizer, which you turn on or off to capture metallics. So there's a lot of different things that go into it. The good thing was, I saw, let's say if I was looking at 25 scans this afternoon, 20 were great, but 5 were not. And for me, I look at all those different things. So we're using, to talk about our digital capture system, we're using the Better Light camera system, which is about 325 megabytes, full frame, RGB. And we can get into DPI and pixels and all that stuff later. But and it's 1-to-1. There's no interpolation. So it's a very good scan, and it's actually been such a good proven technique that it's been around for about 30 years. Now, do we have the best scanning capability? I would say probably not. I would say a flatbed, you can't beat flatbed scanning with a cruise scanner. And I'm, again, being transparent, not the businessman, salesperson. That probably is one of the best ways to scan. But for what we do, that, again, you're kind of scanning on a big flatbed, but we get to move around and deal with all the nuances like I talked about: the lighting, the texture, the focus, the sheen. Whereas when you just have one big machine and you're not able to do all that, yeah, there could be a higher resolution, but you're going to be sacrificing other areas that we're going to be solving. Does that answer that question?
Well, it doesn't answer the question to me, because I have seen how it's working. So basically, it is a very manual process. If I may to interrupt, it is a manual process, and it does take a lot of like testing with the lighting, et cetera, because again, it depends on what the artist wants, because some artists want as flat texture as possible. The others are painting very heavily, and they want this to be reproduced on the print as well. So, and that I cannot imagine flatbed scanner capturing that level of details.
I can't say for sure. But I will say that when somebody comes in, we grab a couple people and say, okay, hey, Steve, this person, and we ask those questions first. Do you want to have the metallic show? Are you going to be embellishing this? Do you want to have a nice even, because you have like a 6x6 painting that's all white, do you want to have even light and forego some of the texture? So yes, again, we ask those questions first. With our particular system, I will say that we can shoot through glass. So if somebody comes in with a beautiful framed piece that was done in the 1920s and they don't want to take it out of the glass, we can capture through that glass and you won't see reflection and you won't see any distortion. It will be as sharp as if there wasn't glass. So I've been very happy with that technique. And, if we don't have to take something out of a frame, then great. That's better. We don't have to risk any potential damage that could happen. We want to keep things intact.
Well, on that note, it's also a good segue. So, to people who are bringing something for capture, what would you recommend to think about as the best practice that will require the least amount of, moving parts for you and your team, and will provide the best results possible for the artist and minimize the risk of like the piece being damaged, like you said, vintage something being framed,
Well,
and like we would have to handle it.
Sure. We also do deliveries. We do pickups, and we have a cargo van. So what we don't do. Let's start with that. We don't go on location to shoot something or scan something. So we don't have that capability yet. So if somebody has a very valuable original, we say, listen, let's make a schedule. You tell us when you want to come in. You can wait for it. You can sit in the back and you can watch this while we scan this and then take it away same day. So we do offer that. And at this, we don't charge any extra charge for that. We just ask that we plan ahead. So we do welcome that. For regular run-of-the-mill original scans, we do ask that we have them for 2 days, 3 days tops, because again, we don't want to keep things here. If you go into my front room, I've got a lot of originals out there. So I would rather get things scanned and then have you pick it up. So we're talking about a day or two, 3 at the most, where the whole process is done. And again, if you have something very valuable, let's say you have an original that's $100,000 or $50,000, we do have riders for that. So we do have insurance, but we would ask that you are here while we're doing that and take it back same day.
All right. I guess my question was like if it's a new painting and someone is bringing you a canvas. I know that we're asking people if it's possible at all, don't put varnish on it before you scan it, right? And some other best practices as well.
Sorry. Yes, you're right. Varnish, while it adds a layer of protection, also will bounce back with any light. And of course, we have to have light that's going to go on the original. So varnish is never good. That said, we've had ways to work around it if it's already done. But if you can wait to varnish or put that shiny protective coat on, that is best. If you have something in glass, don't worry about it. We're not going to have any reflection. Other things, we ask that people, if a lot of people will have a commission and they'll finish it and they'll literally bring it over while it's still wet. So if something's wet, please let us know what areas are wet, because we do have to put little focus cards on some of these originals before we scan. So while we try not to really be too intrusive with this art, we do have to touch it sometimes. So we want to know where we can touch it, if it's dry, and if there's an area that is damaged, we want to point it out first, because we want to make sure that the client knows that we're handling everything with utmost care. I had a client come in, bring in 3 originals tonight, and he said, "Hey, I got this one. This one's on me." So I took a little picture of it. So we make a note and say, "Okay, there's a little bit of a dent there." But again, being artists and being the caretakers of your art, we want to make sure that things are as safe as they can be, and we want you to sleep at night so we can.
That's good to know. That's good to know. I think I had another question, but I already forgot. Well, if I will have more questions, I guess you will be okay to come another time for another episode for the next season. We can.
Galina, my little brain, this is all I know. And I love what I do, and I'm happy to talk about it. So I would say if people want to know the technical terms about, I'm happy to chat at any time about them. Ad nauseum, basically I could talk about pixels and DPI and how to prepare files and all that stuff too. But again, there's so many different things that are involved in the process that we just want to make sure that you're comfortable. And we're gonna, if there was anything that we do, it's to run you through the process because we've been there and we're doing it and we are here now. So. No, thank you very much for indulging my my limited knowledge on anything else but printmaking.
Well, I know that you could be talking for maybe another 2 hours. We only have 1 hour for the episode.
You don't want to hear that. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to go into any other avenue that people want to get into.
I think the last thing I remembered, actually, I think the last thing I wanted to mention is that the whole process from scanning, and the reason why it takes 1 to 3 days is because after scanning, you are actually doing the initial color correction and initial proofs for people to make sure.
So with the Minio scanning charge that we offer, $70 per capture, we offer little initial prints on whatever substrate you're after. So again, you bring in an original, we say, what do you want to print on? Do you want to print on canvas eventually, metal, watercolor, or wood? Based on your answer, we'll do any or all of those. A lot of people will say it's going to be a canvas down the road, Mark, and then I'll say, is it going to be the same size? So what I'll do is I'll have a nice 2 or 3 little small proofs to see the full image and on that substrate, and then I'll print a strip at size. And again, before talking to you tonight, I have a full room here, and I was just doing large, 5-foot strips of canvas. And then the beauty of taking the strip at size is that you can put it right up against the canvas, or canvas most part, and just make sure it matches. And to this day, because I've been around so long, I saw what it used to be. And now it's like eye-opening. Is like, wow, we really can get very close to what you're after, what your original is. So, and it makes me smile when people say, that's great. Look at that. That looks better than the original. I've heard that too.
Yeah.
I'd like to comment on that, not to an artist. So we're going to make sure that you have no questions when you leave the place.
Well, on that note, I'm going to thank you for taking your time tonight and having this conversation with me, because I know we're talking a lot about different technical processes, and your head is always full of ideas, and you're the person who would take like a chunk of the day if something is not working properly, or there's a challenge with a new substrate that you need to figure out. You would literally take time to test and record different outcomes with different with different parameters.
I don't want to have someone come in and know that they can get something better somewhere else. That if I'm arrogant in any way, that's pretty much where that would be. I want to provide the best I can, and if I see something lacking, again, I saw like maybe 4 scans that I want to redo Monday. Great, we're going to redo them. We're not going to let something out of here that's less than what we deemed as being really good.
All right.
Well, have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I will see you next time. Well, I usually say we'll see you next time in the art scene on this podcast, but I guess I will see you next time at the shop.
Anytime.
When I come back to work.
Anytime. Take care, and thanks so much, Galina.
Thank you, Mark. It has been another episode of In the Art Scene podcast. If you liked today's conversation, please give us a good review on Apple. And go listen to other great stories. Check out our website intheartscene.com or follow us on Instagram at intheartscene for more content. If you are a creative and you want to share your story, shoot us a message from the website or DM us on Instagram. Look forward to seeing you next time in the art scene.